"Hey, Mom," Jeremy said, his voice bright but rushed, like he was calling from a checkout line. "Just wanted to say happy holidays. We're about to head out." I shifted the phone to my other ear, glancing at the clock. It was nearly noon. "Oh," I said, trying to keep my tone even. "Where are you going? To Amanda's parents? You know her family's big on tradition." There was a pause, his kind of pause, the kind that came when he thought I might ask why I wasn't included. He filled it quickly. "We figured you'd be with friends or maybe one of the neighbors. Didn't want to overwhelm you. You like your quiet." I didn't correct him. I didn't say that the last time I had a holiday invitation from anyone, Facebook still required a college email. I didn't say that I'd spent the week baking cookies shaped like stars because I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd stop by. Instead, I looked at the little felt snowman in my hand. I'd sewn the eyes on crooked. My fingers weren't as steady as they once were. I'd made it for Riley, Jeremy's son. He loved snowmen. Or he did last year when I saw him last. "I see," I said. Jeremy cleared his throat. "Anyway, love you, Mom. Talk soon." "Of course," I replied and hung up before my voice cracked. The house was silent again. I sat still for a moment, then slowly placed the snowman ornament back into its tissue-lined box. I returned the rest of the decorations to storage one by one with no urgency. There was no one to rush for. Later, I opened my planner and flipped to next December. On the week of Christmas, I wrote one line in neat blue ink. "Next year, don't wait for an invitation." I closed the book gently. Then I stood, walked to the window, and pulled the curtain back just enough to let in the light that still remained. The year Jeremy said he'd come get me, I sat by the window in my nicest sweater, holding a tin of ginger cookies. He said they'd leave around 10 on the. By noon, I'd gone through 2 cups of coffee and one excuse after another in my head. Traffic, last-minute errands, Riley's nap. At 4, the sun started dipping and my phone lit up with a message. "So sorry, Mom, we got held up. Maybe next weekend." The weekend never came. Another year, I baked 3 pies from scratch, apple, pecan, and one of those chocolate ones Amanda always liked. I drove over to their house to drop them off, thinking it was a kind gesture, even if I wasn't invited in. Their driveway was empty. The neighbor across the street, who never remembers my name, waved and said, "They just left. Off to Tahoe, I think. Hope you're joining them." I nodded and smiled like I was. Then I drove home with 3 pies in the back seat and an ache in my chest that felt old, like something worn thin from being handled too many times. The last gift I received from them came 2 years ago. It was a candle. Lavender-scented, half-burned, no tag, no note, just sitting in a reused gift bag. I knew it had probably come from someone else's house, passed along like an obligation no one wanted to hold. I didn't cry. I opened my laptop. I didn't search for flights or family getaways or how to fix relationships with adult children. I searched for something quieter. Cabins, property listings, homes for sale in the Colorado mountains. I didn't want a new life. I wanted a new place to keep the one I already had without the ache of being remembered too late. The listings loaded slowly, one after another. A-frame homes, snow-covered porches, rooms with high windows and quiet ceilings. And then I saw it, the one with the wraparound view. The broker's name was Cassandra. She answered on the second ring and didn't rush through the call. That alone made me feel like maybe I wasn't foolish for asking. She walked me through the house on video. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and a deck that looked out over a valley lined with pine. No grand entrance, no vaulted ceilings. Just space. Clean lines. Light that poured in like it belonged there. "That view's not bad," Cassandra said, turning the camera slowly. I didn't say much, just nodded, let her talk, but something in me was already moving forward. I felt it when I saw the chipped tile in the kitchen, the way the hallway curved slightly at the end like it didn't need to impress anyone, the silence in the background, deep and uninterrupted. "I'd like to make an offer," I said before we hung up. There was a pause. "Are you sure you don't want to see it in person first?" "No, I've seen enough houses filled with noise. I want this one." I used the retirement bonus I'd set aside, the one meant for trips I never took, for plans I was told would come someday. The wire transfer cleared on a Tuesday. By Thursday, the papers were signed. 2 weeks later, the keys came in a plain envelope delivered by a courier who barely made eye contact. I held them in my hand for a long time. I didn't tell Jeremy. I didn't tell anyone. Not the women at church. Not my sister-in-law in Portland who only calls when someone dies. Not even Mrs. Penfield next door, who still leans over the fence every December to ask, "You baking something special for when Jeremy comes by?" I just smiled the next time she asked. I didn't correct her. I packed a single suitcase and drove north before the roads iced over. The house stood there waiting, quiet, blank, and mine. I gave myself 2 weeks not to finish everything, just to begin. The kitchen came first, scrubbing the cabinets until my arms ached, replacing the knobs with brushed brass ones I ordered from a small shop in Vermont. The bathroom was next. I painted it in the middle of the night, humming to myself while the radio played something soft. The mirror fogged up with every breath, but the color dried even. Each evening I lit one lamp and ate dinner on a folding chair, looking out past the deck into the trees. The silence was generous. It gave me space to make choices without second-guessing myself. The furniture came gradually: a simple table, 2 chairs, a bookshelf that arrived in a flat box and took me 4 hours to put together. I chose pieces that felt sturdy but not sentimental. Nothing inherited, nothing gifted, nothing that reminded me of waiting. There was one chair I found in a consignment store in town. Velvety, warm, with just enough give to make you feel held. I placed it near the big window where the afternoon light stayed longest. I sat in it with tea and nothing else. No noise, no thoughts of who might be texting or not texting. Above the chair, I hung a frame. Just a frame. No photo inside. The wall behind it stayed bare, and somehow that was enough. I didn't want to pretend there was a smiling family to display. I just wanted the light to land in one place and stay a while. That night I took a picture. The frame, the chair, the window, the quiet. I posted it on my old account, hadn't touched it in months, and added a single caption. My gift to myself this year. I think I earned it. Then I turned off my phone. The next morning, the phone buzzed across the counter once, then again, then steadily. I let it go for a while before finally picking it up. The caller ID read Jeremy. The phone lit up before I finished my coffee. 5 missed calls. 3 from Jeremy, 2 from a number I didn't recognize but could guess. There was a text sitting beneath them, all casual and bright. Wow, gorgeous house. We're thinking of heading up this weekend to check it out. Looks amazing. Can't wait to see it. No greeting, no. Did you buy this? No. Would you like company? Just a plan I wasn't part of. I stared at the message for a long time, watching the cursor blink in the reply box. Then I typed, "House is not available. I'll be away," and hit send. Hit. A minute later, another message popped up. "Oh, maybe next weekend." I didn't answer. Instead, I set my cup in the sink, dried my hands, and pulled the small stack of cards from the drawer near the front door. Plumbers, painters, the snow clearing service. At the very bottom was a business card with a dark green border. Alpine lock and key. Licensed, bonded, discreet. I called. A woman answered. No questions, no upsell. Just a calm voice saying she could send someone that afternoon. When the locksmith arrived, he didn't comment on the isolation. He just looked at the old brass knobs, the thin deadbolt, and nodded. "We'll upgrade everything. Reinforced locks, internal latch, keypad option if you want it. Something that doesn't rattle when it's windy," I said. He chuckled. "We've got just the thing." He worked quietly, and I stayed nearby, wiping down the kitchen counters and organizing the pantry. Not because it needed to be done, but because it helped to do something with my hands. By evening, every door had been rekeyed. I slid my new key onto a plain ring, then dropped the old one into a drawer and shut it gently. Outside, the snow had begun to fall in soft, even flakes, the kind that didn't rush. I turned off the porch light. The message tone chimed again. This time I didn't look. The invitations weren't formal, just a few calls to people I hadn't seen in a while, neighbors from Valley Road, 2 retired teachers I used to work with, and an old friend from Boulder who said she'd been meaning to get away for a weekend. "I'll bring the wine," she told me. I said that would be perfect. By the time the sun slipped behind the ridge, cars lined the driveway, their headlights stretching long beams across the snow. I set out dishes I hadn't used in years, simple, mismatched but clean, and filled the table with whatever people had brought. A roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans with almonds, a berry pie still warm from someone's oven. It didn't look like a holiday spread, it looked like comfort. The room filled quickly with voices that overlapped and softened in rhythm. Stories of former students, garden mishaps, a flat tire on the drive up. Someone laughed so hard they had to set down their glass. For a moment, I almost forgot there was anyone I'd ever waited on to show up. When the night stretched long, we stayed at the table, not bothering with coffee or dessert. My friend from Boulder leaned back in her chair and said, "This feels more like family than any holiday we've had in years." No one replied right away. We just sat in the hum of it, the fire, the clinking plates, the way the silence that followed wasn't heavy, but whole. After they left, I walked through the house collecting dishes. The table still smelled faintly of citrus and wax from the candles that had burned low. I didn't take a single photo. I washed each plate slowly, one by one, and stacked them to dry. Then I turned off the lights and opened the window just enough to let in the cold. The air carried the faint sound of laughter from the last car pulling away, fading down the mountain road. It was the first sound that didn't echo. The bank's lobby smelled faintly of pine cleaner and old magazines. I'd come to review a few retirement transfers with my financial advisor. Nothing complicated, just a check-in. While I waited, flipping through a dog-eared travel brochure, I heard a voice, familiar but sharper than I remembered. "Is there someone I can speak to about adding a beneficiary to an existing account?" I turned my head. Jeremy. He hadn't seen me yet. His coat was open, scarf trailing, and he looked like he'd rushed in from the cold. Then our eyes met. He blinked, surprised. "Mom, I didn't know you were here." I gave a small nod. "I have an appointment." He hesitated, then sat beside me. "We need to talk." I didn't sigh or roll my eyes, just said, "All right." Coffee shop across the street. We walked there in silence. He ordered a cappuccino. I asked for tea. We took a small table by the window. He didn't ease into it. "You bought a mountain house." "Yes." "And you didn't tell anyone?" "No." He stared at me like I'd stolen something. "Why would you post it like that online for everyone to see?" I stirred my tea. "Because I wanted to." "You didn't think we might have liked to spend time there? You could have invited us." I looked at him, this man I raised, who never once asked where I spent Christmas until I showed him something he wanted. "I wasn't invited to Christmas again." He leaned forward. "That's not fair. We thought you were busy with friends." I folded my hands in my lap. "You didn't ask." Jeremy exhaled. "I'm just saying. It's a big house for one person. You didn't even offer to share." My voice stayed calm. "Because I didn't buy it for sharing. I bought it with my name, not your needs." He looked away. I finished my tea in silence. Then I stood, gathered my coat, and left him there. The wind had picked up outside. I pulled my collar high and headed back toward the parking lot. Inside my car, I sat for a long time, letting the heater hum low. The envelope was cream-colored, thick, and square, like something you'd expect a wedding invitation to arrive in. My name was handwritten in the middle, no return address. I opened it slowly, already bracing for the tone I knew too well. It was from Amanda, polite, formal, cold. "Dear Keshia, due to the upcoming birth of our child and certain transitional housing challenges, we would appreciate temporary residence at your mountain property. As you are currently not utilizing the full space, it would be of great support to the family. We are happy to contribute to utility costs during our stay. Sincerely, Amanda Simmons." There was no warmth in it, no request, no gratitude, just assumption wrapped in politeness. I read it twice. Then I folded the letter neatly, walked over to the fireplace, and fed it to the flames. It caught quickly. The next morning, I found myself scrubbing the kitchen counter with more focus than usual, as if the marble needed to feel mine again, as if the heat of the flames hadn't already done the work. That evening, my phone rang. "Keshia." It was Cassandra, my broker, just checking in. "I had someone ask if you were considering renting. Beautiful place like that. I told them you'd have no trouble finding tenants." "Thanks, but no," I said, not planning to rent. She paused. "Okay, just curious. You sounded firm." "I might need a lawyer soon, though." Another pause. "Do I want to know?" "You don't. But if you know someone who's good with property rights and boundaries, emotional or otherwise, I'd appreciate it." "I'll text you 3 names," she said gently. "The best ones." "Thank you." After we hung up, I poured a glass of water and walked out onto the back deck. The sky was pale lavender, the trees silhouetted against snow. Nothing asked for my attention, nothing demanded a reply. I sat in the quiet, letting it settle into my bones. And when the wind picked up just a little, I smiled, because no one else knew the sound of it here. The last Saturday of January, I set the long dining table myself. Nothing fancy, just mismatched chairs, cloth napkins I'd found at a thrift store, and bowls full of food that smelled like home. They arrived just before dusk. Carol brought her famous garlic knots. Louis came with board games in one arm and a bottle of something warm in the other. Claudia and her wife brought dessert and too many scarves. Everyone had a laugh about the driveway, how it nearly swallowed a car last week. We didn't light candles. We didn't need ambiance. The people were enough. The fire crackled as we passed dishes, told stories, and built new ones in the space between refills. No one asked for grace, but there was a kind of quiet gratitude in the air, the kind that didn't need words. Later, after we'd cleared the plates and moved into the living room, someone asked gently, "Do you ever miss it? The house back in the city, the old holidays?" I didn't answer right away. I walked to the kitchen, grabbed a fresh glass, and poured a little more wine. I returned, sat down, and held the glass lightly in my palm. "You can't miss something that never made space for you," I said. "I lived there, yes, but I was never really in it." No one pushed after that. The music picked back up. Claudia found a playlist we could all agree on, and we sang badly, beautifully, until the snow started falling again. When they left the next morning, the house was quiet in the best way, lived in, respected. I stood by the window watching their cars inch down the hill, tires crunching snow and slush. The wind had picked up again, but it wasn't sharp, just brisk enough to remind me I was somewhere else now. I rinsed the glasses, folded the napkins, and when I passed the hallway mirror, I caught my reflection without flinching. The real New Year hadn't begun on January 1st. It had begun the moment I stopped waiting for someone to let me in. By February, the snow came in lighter layers, more decoration than burden, the kind that stayed just long enough to soften the world and then vanished by noon. I'd started walking barefoot through the house each morning just to feel the warmth in the floors I'd chosen myself. The lights were soft, steady, nothing flickered anymore. Near the door hung the small plaque I'd found at a roadside antique shop on my last trip into town. It wasn't polished or clever, just carved wood with 4 simple words: "Welcome, not owed." I liked how honest it sounded. The mailbox at the end of the drive was empty again that day. I didn't check expecting anything. The habit was more about movement now than hope. Bills, advertisements, sometimes a grocery flyer, never their handwriting, and that was fine. Back inside, the air held a quiet rhythm. The hum of the fridge, the tick of the clock, a sound that reminded me I was alive in my own routine. I made coffee, sat at the table, and opened my planner. The pages were mostly blank, except for a few notes about a doctor's appointment, a book club meeting, and a reminder to change the cabin's air filters before spring. Then I turned to December. The week of Christmas stared up at me, clean, unmarked. For a moment I held the pen above it. I didn't write names or flight times or anything that could shift at someone else's convenience. Just one word: booked. I closed the planner, rested my hand on its cover for a while, and listened to the quiet settle around me. Outside, the trees moved gently against the wind, a steady whisper that filled the silence better than any apology could. When I finally stood, I left the book on the counter and walked toward the window. The sky had cleared, pale blue, stretching across the ridge. I leaned against the glass, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like something or someone was missing.